Hello and welcome to Chatz, a television podcast, Season 9, Better Off Chatz. My name is Alan, and folks, I did get to see my co-host run today. He was like an ostrich in a lab coat trying to catch a bus. It's Magellan, everyone.
I don't even remember where in the episode that's from. Which one is that from?
I'm pretty sure it's from the second one, and they're talking about Phil. They're describing, I think Lem is describing Phil as an ostrich trying to catch, or like Veronica Singer or something.
Oh, that's funny. Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, I'll take that. I'll own that.
Yeah, okay. I want somebody at home to make a list of all the ones that Magellan has taken. And if he doesn't explicitly say that, it didn't explicitly say he doesn't take it, then it's that we have to delete it.
Right. Which one? Which transplants to my body does my body reject versus accept?
Exactly.
That one was right. I definitely feel that way when I'm late for my train here in New York City, huh? The big city.
I would not be surprised if some listener was like, "Is Magellan actually from New York? Is he making it?" Season where you, or I think it was in Chatsalon 5, where you were like recording in your school, and
for some episodes, yeah,
you could like hear police sirens in the background. I was like, should I cut that out? And someone was like, I think it was Olivia, was like, I love the ambient sounds of this.
Reminds me of my days in Brooklyn.
In Brooklyn.
Manhattan.
How is New York these days? What's going on there?
Oh, it's the leaves are changing, the leaves are dropping, the case counts are rising.
No. Good joke. I mean, good real life, not joke.
It's real life. It's a lot. This is boring. I don't have anything interesting to say.
You don't want to do COVID chats?
I was about to talk about the weather. I was about to talk about how it's warmer than it usually is this time of year. I don't want to talk about that.
It's not in my experience. It's colder here. The temperatures are more extreme. That's how cold it is.
It's been unseasonably warm.
Unseasonable.
Yeah, it's been cold here and there, but like I've barely had to wear my coat, and November's almost over.
I feel like we're getting into coat season though, which is exciting to me. January is peak coat season.
Right. If I am not freezing cold in January, I'm gonna be upset.
I'm gonna move.
Yeah.
I'm going straight to Alaska, baby. No turning back.
Ding ding. Sign me up for one of those oil checks.
I'm like that Antarctica anime where the girls are like, I'm gonna find adventure in Antarctica, and then we go there and we're like, oh God, it's cold.
We're not wearing enough clothes because it's anime, and they freeze to death.
They're teenagers.
I didn't know that. I'm just making an anime joke.
Okay. That show is incredibly wholesome and good. It's called A Place. I think I've chatted it like a year ago. It's really good. It's called A Place Beyond the Universe.
Okay.
Antarctica is not the location of Better Off Chatz. Instead, it takes place in sunny California or city,
some kind of city.
Cityland, USA. The only shot of the outside we ever get, besides that, the other sets, is the pan up at the beginning of each episode.
Yeah, have they ever said where it is?
No. I think
it seems like Ted's house is on the ground floor, so that
probably not the West Coast.
Well, no, that does
probably the West Coast
to me, yeah.
Oh, right, because of earthquakes, yeah.
Earthquakes, yeah.
Earthquakes,
but if it's such a tall skyscraper that they're in, I don't know. They've never said, but people's houses seem like, I think because they're probably shooting it in LA, it ends up their houses feel very California. So I don't know. Yeah. But we're watching Better Off Chatz.
And it's Better Off Chatz, and here we are. We're talking about TV shows like we do every single week. They can't make us stop. In fact, we're going to continue.
Yeah.
This week, we watched Season 2, Episode 5, The Great Repression, as well as Season 2, Episode 6, Change We Can't Believe It. The Great Repression was written by Becky Mann, Audra Sylaf, and Ingrid Escajeda. It was directed by Reginald Hudlin, and it originally aired on New Year's Day 2010.
Oh my God, ABC.
Talk about the gallows slot.
They were trying to torpedo this show. Oh man.
I was looking at, this is early-ish AV Club times, and I was looking at some reviews of these episodes, and even before it got canceled, there was reviews that were like, this is getting canceled, right? This smells like it's getting canceled.
Yeah. They're not even bothering to hide it. The next one came out 4 days later. That's so bad.
6 and 7 aired on the same day.
Oh my God. Really?
Yes, same night, I think.
Oh, that sucks. And they didn't even air the last couple, right?
or the last one, I think.
Oh man.
Yeah, it's only on streaming services. We're gonna talk about that one, but
Oh,
it's
man.
not. It didn't air.
ABC.
I think that's also why like
Never gave it a
we had
chance.
to when you were like reading the episode order, it's different on IMDb because it puts 7 ahead of 6. But Magellan, can you actually tell me what happened in the Great Repression?
Sure. In this episode, Linda and Ted face sexual harassment charges from an overreacting coworker. Boy,
Oy.
oh boy. But Veronica's solution to the problem creates unexpected complications. Meanwhile, Lem and Phil try to save a robot that is replaced by a human. Alan, what'd you think of the Great Repression?
If I told you that at least one of the writers on this episode worked on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, would you believe me?
I could believe it. There's a lot of really good jokes in this episode. I think it's one of the funnier, like, joke episodes.
I agree. But
we almost reached, like, last week I think you were telling me there was some review that compared Better Off Ted to 30 Rock in terms of its pace, which I think
it was another
generous.
contemporaneous review, yes.
But for this episode, I think it did feel like 30 Rock fast, almost, with the jokes.
I was just looking at the credits, and 2 of the writers worked on Always Sunny. One of them worked on Justified and Empire, interestingly enough.
Okay.
But yeah, I thought this episode was like you said, pretty interesting and engaging. I just don't know where the show like landed at the end of the episode on how they feel about sexual harassment, because it waffles between like not caring and Ted being kind of honestly like a jackass when it comes to being told like, hey, you need to learn from your mistakes, to Linda becoming this like really charming like vigilante trying to save people, and then the button being like, and then we threw kids at the problem and everything got fixed. No one's horny anymore.
It really feels like a sort of kitchen sink approach to the concept of sexual harassment, as opposed to there being one sort of clear narrative of exactly, what the take is, which I think really hurts the episode.
Most definitely. But we have I didn't write our usual outlines for this episode, so I'm gonna freeball it a little bit if you don't mind here, Magellan.
Sure, I think we can just, it's like the Linda, Ted, Veronica stuff and the Lem and Phil stuff feel very separate from each other, so we can just sort of consider them separately.
Let's talk about Phil and Lem, because I love my friends.
Yeah. Let's knock it out. So the general concept, as was said in the summary there, is that Lem and Phil have a beloved spill technician that they have heard is going to retire, and then it's revealed that the spill technician is a Roomba with like a button from an arcade machine on top of it and a smiley face onto it. And there's this whole thing about the Roombas being replaced by a person named Carlos, who is the new spill technician, and it's this kind of backwards joke about automation. And then the other part of it, this is also kind of a kitchen sink plot, because there's that, and then there's also the gag that the Roomba is their dog, and Ted tells them that it's like going to a farm upstate.
Yeah.
And then it turns into like the machine became too intelligent and tried to kill us kind of thing.
Carlos saves the day.
Yeah, so that I mean, that's really the plot. There's not too much else going on there. I'm curious what you thought about it, though.
I definitely had a big grin on my face when I realized the gag of they're replacing robots with humans. How dare they? And how sharply the 2 actors like deliver that, where they're like, really, this seems so unfair. I can't believe they're always doing this. Yeah. And they even acknowledge that like it's not as if Chumley, the name of the cleaning robot, is like an android. It doesn't look human. But as Phil says, like it's a smile that I drew on its face, like, and I gave it a face. I always remember when people talk about that stuff. Scott McCloud's Understanding Comics, which is a book I had read in high school and then again in college, because one of the cool things he talks about in that is like you can create empathy by making 2 dots in a line. That's like the base, because humans are naturally self-centered and we see ourselves in everything. So anything that looks like a face, you're gonna be like, that, I think that's a person.
Yeah, that's looks like a friend. As Brian David Gilbert says in his video about Kirby on Polygon, it's shaped like a friend.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Kirby's a distinctly friend-shaped kid.
Yeah.
But they grow attached to this Roomba, which again, like jokes about Roombas, very 2009, 2010s.
Yeah.
Now I have you ever had a Roomba or seen one?
God, I don't know if I've seen one in person. I must have at some point in my life. I've never owned one. My family's never owned one, but I feel like have to have seen one by this point, right?
I'm just not in the income bracket to have a Roomba myself. It just seems like
I've just never been in a space where the floor plan is such that it's like, it could really do a good job here is a Roomba. It could really figure this out. Like in my room right now, there's no space for a Roomba. There's barely space for my cat. So.
How are you going to get that Mario Kart circuit game where you lay the track around your house?
I know I would have gotten it maybe if I had, a big old living room or whatever. But anyway.
No, I've definitely never had one. I know the joke always was like they're not intelligent enough or something like that, or like cats don't tend to like them also because they get scared of it. But that just felt another one of those like, oh, this is pretty of its time, and how like we think about technology differently.
Yeah.
But I always enjoy a good like, is this thing human or what plot line. Very cyberpunk, very sci-fi, which is what I always want Better Off Ted to lean more into. And like you said, the whole robot farm thing, pretty charming. We get some really great lines out of Phil and Lem, and when they're like discovering this, because it is like a genuine moment of wonder where they're like, or fear, when they're told that he's going to the farm, and it's a beautiful robot farm where they can run around and graze forever. It's like what my mom said, not my mom, but like what somebody's mom would say happened to their dog when she went away for a long time.
And I think the scene where they confront Ted about it is one of the funnier ones in the episode.
Yes.
Where they're like, Ted, the maintenance guys were making fun of us for thinking that there's a farm, but there's a farm, right? He's
like, oh, oof.
And they're like, listen, guys. I thought that scene was actually really funny.
Phil does say there, I feel like my heart has been kicked in the testicles, which is...
He also yells at Ted, and he says, where did they take him, you son of a bitch? I mean, my immediate superior. Which is good.
Wish I could do that someday, but I can't. And also, they only get like 2 of those a season, so good use
also,
of it.
Isn't it kind of weird that Phil and Lem don't have someone who administrates the lab and is like the superior to the scientist who knows the science?
I have thought about that.
Isn't that kind of weird?
Maybe that's them, though, to other people.
I guess maybe that's true, yeah.
But like, what's the corporate structure of specifically within the lab? I don't know.
It's also not to pick apart the like lack of verisimilitude on this show too much.
Yeah.
But also like all of the research and development of the whole company is done by like 6 scientists.
6 idiot nerds.
Room. I guess they've alluded to like there are other labs on other floors and stuff, but
yeah,
I don't know. Anyway,
this is like specifically the R&D. It's a department, right? But it's still like a lot of work for that many lab techs. Yeah. No, I liked also when they go to what they realize is the robot farm, which is just like a basement, like where they store a bunch of old tech. Yeah. Every office building does have this, and anyone who works in an office or worked in an office pre-pandemic should look into it, because I've always wanted to visit the one that's in my building. I'm like, what's down there? We don't want to throw this thing away, but we don't want to look at it anymore basement.
Yeah.
And so they find it, and they're like, oh, we got to fix the spagoobly recombobulator. They talk on, I know we reference this podcast a lot, and I do apologize if people are annoyed by it, but on Fake Doctors, how hard it is for them on Scrubs to like learn medical jargon. And you have to imagine that when Malcolm Barrett is trying to like say this line to Ted, he's like, oh, we did the flaboobled the spagobble. He just does it, and it's like beautifully. Like he does it so well, and I'm like, that had to be multiple takes. There's simply no way.
Yeah, that's funny.
I refuse to believe it.
Yeah.
But they managed to find a part, and they think they fixed it, but it goes rogue. There's another thing about this that felt, I don't know if it's dated or what, but I'm curious what you thought about it. The choice to make Carlos, like, he is of either Hispanic or Latinx descent, it seems like, and his name is Carlos, and he is a janitor. Those are all things that are traditionally stereotypes.
Yeah.
But it's not a plot detail, and he doesn't have an accent. So is it still offensive?
I had questions about that myself because we've also seen janitors in this show, or sanitation worker. I don't know what is a better term, but I think janitor's fine in this case. We've seen janitors in this show who like are of many different racial backgrounds, or like security personnel or whatever. And even in this episode, I think, doesn't Ted talk to someone who's a janitor? I think it's an African American guy who's a janitor or something. I don't know, but they like have mixed it up. But then in the one plot where they need like a named janitor character, his name is Carlos. It's like, I don't know about this. I guess I don't know.
I think at the time, the simple fact of him not being a parody or a stereotype was definitely lauded by somebody in some room. Like, oh, okay, this is not offensive. We're fine. Like, this is enough to get on network TV safely and not like incur wrath from people.
Yeah.
But you can do a little bit better. But also, like, I literally mentioned in season 1 that I'm wondering where the cleaning personnel are in Veridian Dynamics, and we got to see them. So on one hand, you're actually
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, on one hand, you are actually representing an important part of the work personnel at Veridian, but on the other hand, like, you had one janitor and you named him Carlos. Like, you're aware that you did that, guys.
Yeah, it definitely feels like a sort of post-racial colorblind thing of like, hey, he's not a caricature, he's not a stereotype, but they're like not commenting on it. They're doing it, but not saying anything about it in a way where it's,
it's like Bomba being a scientist, which is great, except for the part where he's like, I love destruction and murder. And it's like,
right.
You're so close, Better Off Ted. Like, you
yeah.
It's weird. And it's a product of its time. As always, the chat's promise is we will watch things of their time and not try to judge them entirely on like today's standards. But we're watching it today.
And they never really like go anywhere with it, because the ultimate conclusion with Carlos is that it turns out that he saves them or something, which is I don't know what that even is narratively. I guess it's just like he wins them over and he gets to have this hero moment, but his hero moment is beating up a Roomba. It was a little weird to me. But I thought that the actor did a great job. I really liked his delivery of when they tried to bring the Roomba back, and he's like, what does he say? He's like, don't you get it? It's not about machines anymore. It's about guys with mops. The way that he emphasized it's about guys instead of how I would have read the line as like, it's about guys with mops. He like really milked both of those words, which was very good.
Guys is the input. Yeah, exactly. So really good stuff there. And I guess I just wish for like to be slightly more equitable here with like the diversity. But
yeah, again, I just wish like if they're gonna do that, they should have commented on it, and there wasn't any commentary.
Yeah, there's a way to mention that without it being offensive. Like most cleaning personnel I know are similarly of various descent, but regardless, that's where that plot pretty much goes. I didn't even have that many lines from it. I just thought it was really funny, and I always
kind of cute.
Always appreciate Phil and Lem, my two sons, and our A plot, which we've now been hitting a string of A plots that are like pretty horny. Today on Better Off Ted, he's badly attempting to flirt at the beginning of this episode with yet another attractive thin blonde woman.
Yeah, we can only portray Ted having any sort of romantic scenario with blonde women, or the one time she was a brunette,
right?
Last season.
Yes. And they tease the conclusion of this plot at the beginning, because he's like, oh, I have to put my time and energy somewhere, and I'm at the office so much, so like relationships naturally form themselves, but where else can I put my energy? Oh, hey, it's Rose. So Rose is back, and Veronica comes through, and they're very, very funny in this first scene. She sets up the running joke of this episode, which is And then you do that, and then you pull his hair. It's mess up his hair. It's the source of his power. And then smash him with a phone. And she's like, "Why does everyone? Why do nobody ever listens when I tell them to smash things with a phone?" Which
yeah.
Rose finally does at the end of the episode.
At the end of the episode, that was a good button. Yeah.
And then the weird inversion. Oh, go ahead.
No, you go first.
The weird inversion of it being Linda that gets in trouble for the sexual harassment. They're like, okay, there's a sexual harassment case. HR says I can't tell you who it is though. And then immediately Linda is like, I wouldn't say it's me, but it's me. And it turns out that there's this woman named Sheila who she works with who was venting or was crying about. I think
she's from the cat episode.
Yes, the woman from the cat club in the cat episode.
Her cat died.
So bringing back season 1 things yet again.
Yeah, I like that season 2 is doing that.
Yeah, it is acknowledging a little bit of continuity.
Yeah.
She's crying, and Linda attempts to console her. Linda always like not knowing how to be kind in a way and like empathetic the right way is kind of a fun aspect of her character.
I like that in both of these episodes, Linda really thinks that she's like such a likable, good person, but in both episodes, people despise her.
Yeah.
In this first one, she gets a sexual harassment complaint filed against her, and in the second one, the guy that she's always talking to is like, "You're annoying. Stop talking to me.
All you ever care about is my wife and how my day is going."
Yeah.
So she, basically does in fact harass Sheila and hugs her boobs, which is wild. And then she does like back rubs, and it's all of the stuff that like in a work video about sexual harassment, this is what the guy is doing to the woman. That's the joke here, but she's not realizing it. Ted also harasses Sheila by accident. Speaking of things that I don't know if the show knows that they're commenting on, the fact that all these people are like harassing the one black woman that's like in their office that we see regularly is like, this is weird. Nothing to say about it. And like I said, the show doesn't comment on it, and which maybe is, like you're saying, the sort of post-racial, like, we don't even notice that she's just another woman.
There's just a lack of racial awareness in this episode. Because then also it's like Sheila's character the entire time is being portrayed as like, she's overreacting. It's a misunderstanding. Come on. This is funny. This isn't bad.
We're just doing a joke.
Yeah.
But they end up having to go to HR or like, harassment HR training. There was this very strange, Jack. I'm so curious what you thought about like the guy who runs that part of HR, and his secretary is like, yeah, he's in rehab because he's an alcoholic. I'm not supposed to tell you that, but he's like in and out of rehab. It's all to set up the fact that I think it's Linda or someone who realizes that you can get Veronica, yeah. The other blonde one. The other white beat. I'm sorry. I'm issuing a formal 10-minute video apology that doesn't feel sincere.
I should have known at the time.
I should have known. I'll do better. Please don't unsubscribe. And the thumbnail's like me crying, but I don't actually cry in the video. The section. This is so that they can make it so harassment is classified as a disease. Yeah. Which is weird.
Yeah, there's a lot of things about the setup to this episode that are weird. I think specifically talking about that, it's just so hard for me to triangulate the satire in this episode and like if it's working or not. And I don't want to pretend that I am like the ultimate authority on any of the things that we're talking about here. So I'm just really going to try to speak from a place of like what I felt weird about. Because I think there's something here that's working, and there's a lot of things that aren't. So I'm trying to parse it out. But with the alcoholism thing, and the secretary being like, "Yeah, it's a disease, so the company can't fire him." Like, alcoholism is a serious thing, and I guess you could sort of make a joke about someone who's pretending to be an alcoholic so that he can get time off work or something, but like that's not how it works. People are alcoholics, and it's a thing that people struggle with and have to deal with and have to get support for. And also sex addiction is like a thing,
very serious.
So it's just, I don't know, this felt this episode felt like it was dismissive of those things in a way that I think is somewhat harmful, or at best just sort of continues certain status quos around those things.
Exactly. It's in the milieu of shows that were doing this, but it doesn't make it better somehow.
Yeah, it's just like, I don't know, it has that attitude of alcoholism. Yeah, I like alcohol too. I guess I'm an alcoholic. And it's like, no, some people are alcoholics.
It's a very, very big difference. Some people are. Like, harassment isn't always like back rubs and boob touching. There's a part later.
That's the other thing. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, there's a part later where like a guy is trying to do harassment, and then Linda stops him, and his harassment is like getting a woman to stop, like showing her folded legs or whatever, and then he like puts his hands out, and it's like, what was the play here? That's not what real world harassment usually. That's like 1950s harassment.
Yeah, I think my issue with the plot is the way that it sort of treats harassment as this very narrow thing, and the way it treats it as an individual issue instead of a systemic issue, where when you see Ted and Linda in the harassment seminar, Ted and Linda are like, we're not harassers. And then there's this sort of rogues gallery of skeevy men who are like, I could go for some private tutoring, or I tripped on a chick's cans. Come on. and like, they're funny characters, I guess. And you can definitely make fun of men like that because that is punching up to a certain extent. Mm-hmm. But also it makes this very clear point that it never goes back on, where the episode says like, Ted and Linda are fine. Sheila misunderstood, and they're actually fine. And there's never
a comic misunderstanding. It's fine. We don't need to learn.
And there's never a point, where the episode shows you like what Ted and Linda learned, because they don't learn anything. They just are in the right the whole time. And they're the only people who are like guilty of harassment in the episode are these cartoonishly misogynistic dudes, who there certainly are men like that in the world.
Yeah.
And certainly also harassment happens between equals in an organization. But also like the much more, well, I don't know if it's much more important, but another dimension of harassment is like briefly mentioned by Veronica, where she's like, yeah, and all those executives have their own like touchy grabby unzippy problems, and so they like this solution too. And that's the only reference we get into the whole episode to the idea of a superior harassing someone beneath them in the hierarchy at work, which again, I don't know what is sort of like the most frequent occurrence of sexual harassment or what, but that feels like a pretty important dimension that is like kind of brushed off in favor of doing this like this version of harassment that, like you're saying, would show up in a corporate training video of like, don't be like Harry the harasser who's always like trying to fondle ladies' boobs and saying bazumba, yum yum yum, or whatever the fuck.
Right. Well, okay, so here's my question.
Yeah.
This is a sitcom.
Right.
The most common complaint of what we're saying would be, did you want them to portray this realistically? Because that's not funny.
Right. Good point. And that's where I sort of don't have a good answer, because obviously, it would be very, very uncomfortable if there was a Better Off Ted plot about like someone sexually harassing someone beneath them at work. That would be a problem. And I don't know how you could do that well. So I don't really have an answer. I just know that this is sort of what it is about this plot that kind of rubs me the wrong way. It's
sort of a changing paradigm in television, actually, in comedy on television, where so much of what we see now is, the discomfort that comes from that is the comedy, and the realism is the comedy, and we've come to appreciate stuff like that. Sort of like a British humor style of, instead of saying this is a fantasy world where like we can joke about this and it's like that's one form of escapism. The other one, which you see much more often now in like HBO comedies and stuff, is like it's happening in front of us and oh god, it's real, like the Veep style, to kind of put a name to it. Yeah. Of this is really happening and it's real and it's sad, but we can laugh about it because laughter is healing. It's a different style, and I just think that there's a reason that this format has kind of fallen out of favor with people. is at some point you're just like, this isn't teaching me anything or making me feel like I can't relate to this much.
Yeah, I think the issue is just that you walk away from this being like, bad people are bad, which is not actually a very good lesson.
Yeah.
Because, like, yeah, bad people are bad. And I guess it's good to have things that talk about how men are skeevy sometimes and do skeevy things, but it just feels, it doesn't feel particularly nuanced in a way that's like more useful than just already knowing that fact. Yeah. And then I think this is sort of a small thing that doesn't really detract from the episode too much, but also the woman at the beginning of the episode is sexually harassing Ted.
Yeah, and she does it again later.
And that is only presented as Ted being like, boy, oh boy, I'd really like to fuck this broad, but I'm trying to be professional. And like, maybe he doesn't feel that way. And he doesn't like it if someone is like that forward with him. You know, I feel like there could have been something there. I don't know how the episode would have done it, but
the episode acknowledges the double standard here. That's why Linda's whole section exists, where she's like, I like make the guys feel uncomfortable by yelling at them and telling them they have a small dingus, and that's okay to me because I'm the woman doing it. But they don't address the fact that a woman is literally harassing Ted at the beginning of this episode, and this is again why I'm putting my stamp on it. My asexual read of Ted continues to thrive.
I don't think he's asexual. I think
not
Ted
anymore. He's just getting
horny.
so horny.
He's very horny, but he just only loves Veronica. That's my read, is that he loves Veronica.
Yeah, he hasn't flirted effectively with Linda. This is a season that's supposed to end with him getting with Linda, and we only ever see him flirt with Veronica.
Yeah, and I don't mean to say that like this episode should be about how men are harassed too, because like obviously in workplaces by the numbers, that is a less frequent issue than it happening to women. But it's just to say that there is a more nuanced way that there's like just so much going on in the episode, and it doesn't serve to look at different angles on sexual harassment. It just serves to be like different jokes related to sexual harassment, and the only sort of coherent message is really the Linda section of it, where she's the sort of like, I think like you said, the vigilante of sexual harassment, and like, you know, tweaks the nipples of the guy and body shames both of the men. And yeah, I don't know, it's weird.
Basically, the episode from here descends into some chaos. I do want to say that the woman who is like the sexual harassment educator I recognized her, and I looked her up.
Her too,
she's in a lot of TV. The actress's name is Jennifer Irwin. I think I know her from all the way back in the day when I used to watch Eastbound and Down, which, speaking of shows that I have no idea how well they hold up, I watched, I think, all of that show, maybe. And she's also in Schitt's Creek, so you might recognize her from that.
Oh, yeah.
And she's also in *Halt and Catch Fire*, a show that we keep circling around like sharks, but we haven't watched yet. So she's that. I recognized her, and I was like, okay, that's pretty cute, and it's fun that she's in this episode. Then everything gets weird because Veronica makes it so it's a disease, so everyone starts flirting with everyone, and then they can't be productive anymore because everyone's having sex and flirting and sitting on each other's laps.
Which is another weird implication of the episode, right? The point being made that, like, if people were allowed to harass each other, first of all, the thing that it's saying is that people are holding back because there are rules about sexual harassment, which I don't think is true.
Yeah.
I think people are doing what they feel is appropriate. And the other thing that it's saying is if people were able to sexually harass each other, they would also have more sex with each other.
Yeah.
Which I don't know about that. That felt bad.
It's like the shot of Veronica walking around being like, "Oh my god, everyone's kissing," and then it like the Ted and Veronica ending being, "Oh, we actually like each other as well," and like, what's gonna stop us from doing this? And they're about to, and then Rose walks in, and you're like, it's a Rose ex machina, basically. She comes out of the closet and is like, "I'm here, Dad. You're a father. Don't freaking forget that." And he's like, "Oh, snap." And then they realize that the strategy will be to walk children through the office at random intervals, and suddenly no one's horny anymore. Because nothing, I think, as Ted says, nothing kills your sex drive like children.
Did you feel weird? There was a lot in this episode that made me feel weird. The second time I watched it, I laughed a lot. The first time I felt strange and wasn't crazy about it. But the second time I laughed a lot. But I felt weird about the way that they cut the Rose stuff in, where he's like, there's one girl that I have affection for or whatever, and then he walks in, he's like, hey sweetie, you want to wrestle? And it's his daughter. And it's like, why are you doing that? And then she comes in right when they're about to have sex, and it's like, why are you doing this? And then it ends with them wrestling. I don't know about this. It just gives it a weird energy.
It's very dad energy.
But it, I guess,
like the thing is supposed to be that Rose is like bumping into the natural chaotic horniness of Veridian Dynamics and stopping it dead in its tracks, because you would never be sexual around your daughter. You would hope.
I know,
but she's a literal child.
Yeah, but it's just weird that at the beginning of the episode, Ted comes from this interaction with this woman in the hallway where he's clearly like just had a boner and tried so hard to repress it, as the title of the episode suggests. And then he busts into his office and he's like, hey, my daughter, let's wrestle each other. It just, I get that they're going for the gag of, oh, you didn't expect it to be his daughter.
Mm-hmm.
But it just felt weird.
It's a little weird.
Yeah.
I'll give you that. It's a little weird.
All right.
And then, so that's their kind of their end, which I don't love. But then I did actually really like Linda's ending, which is that her and Sheila make up, and she's like, hey, what I did was actually really uncool, and I'm sorry. And, you know, I support you and don't want to be weird to you anymore. It's like, that's all you had to say. It's so easy to just be sincere at Better Off Ted.
Yeah.
Which is not a show I come to for sincerity, but as we'll talk about in the second episode, when they do it, they do it. And I love it when they do it. I wish they could do it sometime a little bit more. And then, yeah, Veronica and Ted, or not, Rose and Ted fight for a little bit, and then she actually whacks him with a phone after the credits roll.
Pretty funny.
Very good stuff. Any stray notes or thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I wrote down a few jokes because they're just a bunch of nice jokes in this one. Mm-hmm. The fact that Sheila called her cat Meow is the time for all good men to come to the aid of their country, but she calls him Meow for short.
I did not catch that one. What's that?
Meow, he's gone. Good. And she's great. She's the Stevie's mom from Malcolm in the Middle, which I said last time she was on, but she's really funny. The line where I thought it was actually pretty well done when Ted tries to fix things and goes to Sheila, and it sounds like he's proposing a threesome. If that had kind of been what the episode was, and it focuses on Ted and Linda in this seminar and spends more time with that instead of going to Zany Town with Veronica's idea, I think I would have liked it more. But then when Veronica comes in and is like, it sounded like you proposed a threesome, and Ted's like, I'm a single father and I work all day. I don't even have the energy for a one-some.
That was good. I like that.
That was good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
sorry,
then,
I just now realized that Now is the Time for All Good Men is like a lorem ipsum.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah, that's what that's in reference to.
Oh, I thought it was like a quote from something. That's pretty funny.
It's like the Quick Brown Fox. Same idea.
Yeah. The line where I think my biggest laugh of the episode is when Linda says, I don't want to lose this job. What am I supposed to do? Go back to Wisconsin and work in the cheese mines after I made that big speech and threw down my cheese shovel and stormed out?
Wow, how did I miss all these good gags?
I like to imagine that's Linda's real life and wasn't just her making a joke.
Yes, that there's a secret side episode about that.
Yeah, and I'm curious. We got an interesting implication from a line here. I'm curious what you think it means.
Okay.
Where Phil says to Lem, first of all, when they see all the robots and stuff broken up, he says it's like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre if someone massacred the chainsaws.
The chainsaw, love that.
Which is a nice line.
Yeah.
And then he says to Lem, I fixed my marriage with mechanical attachments. I can fix this. What do you think's going on there?
What's going on? What's going on? Hey, Phil.
What are you talking about there, Phil?
I love the versatility of that line.
Yeah.
Because did he make a mechanical arm to pleasure his wife? Did he make a mechanical genital to pleasure his wife? Did he make a mechanical
an attachment for her so she could pleasure him in a certain way, perhaps?
Right.
If we want to get the most blue that Chatz has ever gotten, I mean, there's something in it's something sexual.
Yes,
and I appreciated the subtlety of that.
Then that's the rare benefit of being on network TV, right? Is it's actually funnier to not say what that is.
Yeah.
To not show to show, don't tell, if you will, Magellan.
Yeah. And then that's okay, sorry. Actually, my second biggest laugh was the cheese thing. My biggest laugh was this is the last note I have, where Phil and Lem sincerely thought that Ted was best friends with Ryan Seacrest.
Oh my god, yes.
He's like, what? No,
why did you think that?
And then Lem goes, huh, another loss. Oh, I laughed so fucking hard at that. This episode is really one of the funnier ones when you isolate certain lines. It's just the
thread
of it. It was messy, I think. Yeah.
Because all these good jokes don't have anything to do with the plot. Like, my favorite was when they're in the sexual harassment training and Ted's talking about, like, I can't wait to be on Ted.
Yeah.
Ted with an exclamation point. It's a talk show with, like, I'm going to do trivia and I'm going to do all these different segments. And it's going to be great. I'm going to have a couch. And you're like, whoa. And he's like, yes, I've thought about it.
Yeah, that was pretty good. I really do think the episode would have been so much more fun if it was essentially a bottle episode in the sexual harassment training.
Yeah, that's where a lot of the gold came from.
A lot more. But anyway.
It has to be horny. That's the rules.
Yeah. And at this point, we can just say Ted and Linda are not going to get together, right? I mean, it's Ted and Veronica. That's the only person he has eyes for.
No. It's Ted and Linda.
There's nothing. Ted and Linda, there's nothing there.
I know you say that, but let me tell you a thing about straight people. Is sometimes they just make decisions that don't make sense.
Literally, whenever Veronica says jump, Ted drops his pants.
I know, but that's the arc of the season. And then at the end, he's going to be like, oh, no, actually, Linda was there all along. He's not going to get with Veronica. Are you kidding? Are you smoking?
He's not going to get with Linda. If you're a Ted-Linda shipper at this point, the ship has sailed.
No. Quit it.
It's non-canonical at this point.
All right, nobody tell us. We'll find out at the end of the show. Magellan actually knows, and he's messing with me also.
I've forgotten, but
okay, good.
They can't get together. In the episode where people are being sexy and Ted gets turned on by the one random new character lady and then almost has sex with Veronica and shares an incredibly tender kiss. You're telling me that there's hope for him and Linda?
Yes, always.
When they basically acted like they were best buds in this one. Platonic best buds.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I'll wait and see how right I am exactly.
All right.
But yeah, that's what I have for this episode. I thought it was okay, and I definitely did laugh a lot, and I wrote a lot of good jokes down, like we mentioned. Oh, last one, when they're trying to talk about sexual harassment in front of Rose at the top of the episode, and Veronica's like, don't want to talk about sexual harassment. Which I remember the first time I told you my dumb joke of WT fuck, and you thought it was the funniest thing in the world. Because it just doesn't censor the part that the whole thing is for.
That is very funny.
Magellan?
Yeah?
I think it's time for us to take a brief break.
All right.
And we'll be right back to discuss change we can't believe in.
Welcome back to Better Off Chatz. The second episode we watched this week was Season 2, Episode 6, Change We Can't Believe In. It was written by Elijah Aaron, Jordan Young, and Ingrid Escajeda. Directed by Ali Shalat Shamel. That's a cool name. It originally aired January 5th, 2010, 4 days after the previous episode. ABC. Gosh.
Fight me, ABC. Fight me, IRL.
Fight me, ABC. Oh, is that why there was confusion about which one was next? Because they aired on the same day?
That's what I said in the first half.
Yeah, well, that's what... But you said they aired... No, don't laugh at me for this. Because
No, I'm laughing at myself for commenting on this. Go ahead.
Because I remembered you saying they were on the same day.
Uh-huh.
And so I'm wondering if that's why there's a different order on Wikipedia than there is on Hulu.
Exactly. It's the same order issue happened on IMDb.
I see. Interesting. So there might be some sources where you saw that episode 6 is beating a dead workforce. But
you were wrong.
We watched Change We Can't Believe In because we're going by the Hulu order, although both of them aired on the same day. And we'll watch Beating a Dead Workforce next week. Alan, what happened in Change We Can't Believe In?
Well, John, I'm glad you asked. In this episode, Ted struggles with an overly talkative security guard who worships him and wants to be his best friend. Meanwhile, a terrified Phil and Lem face the prospect of working alone with Veronica for the very first time.
Can I just start off by saying that the title means absolutely nothing?
Change We Can Believe In is something. That's like someone's slogan.
Yeah, that's Obama. Yeah.
Oh, wow, 2010. Ew.
But it has no bearing on the episode whatsoever. Like, if you had to tell me what is the change in this episode, what would you say it is? It's a bad title.
I can't even begin to pinpoint it.
It's not a good title. The Great Repression is a fine title. Everyone's repressing their sexual urges, I guess, or something. Fine. It's a fine title. Change We Can't Believe In, meaningless.
I'll have to think about it.
Anyway.
This episode's very much straight down the plate. It's an A plot and a B plot. We got nothing complicated here. No chuff, no chaff, no chafe, no faff. I really am just a young Dr. Seuss, and that's also my new rapper name. Check me out on SoundCloud. That's a really good idea, actually. Hold on, I'll be right back.
Okay, bye.
The Ryan security guard stuff is what I want to talk about first, because it involves Ted, and he's our friend. Ryan was in season 1 in that episode where they did a heist to get Ted's ID back. So we remember Ryan, and we like Ryan.
And we've changed the one thing we know about Ryan, because before the one thing we knew is that he was very horny for big boobs or something.
Yep.
And now the thing that we know about him is that he's a talkative, friendly guy.
So we talk about the real life discomfort of Better Off Ted and how they could lean further into things that are like true to office life, right? But they don't always do that.
Yeah.
I have run into people like Ryan regularly.
Yeah.
I have literally been Ryan in friendships, in work environments where you can tell this guy is lonely. You can tell he just wants to have a conversation. He works in a basement alone 24/7, like not 24/7, but he works his whole shift alone in this basement part of the building. Kind of sucks. He just wants to talk to someone. He likes small talk. I think it's funny in the age of COVID to see a plot line about small talk when me and most of my friends have literally forgotten how to do small talk, because what is that? Who is just like walking by me at work and being like, hey, what's going on? How's the wife? So this and the Veronica plot, I think, synergize kind of nicely. But I do appreciate how they took the Ryan plot line and really stretched it out, because there's no C plot. We go all the way to the point where he leaves the company and then comes back because we're so committed to this bit.
Yeah.
To the point where Ted is literally delivering his child. So I thought that stuff was really funny. What about you?
Yeah, I thought it was fine. I think it's a pretty forgettable episode in my opinion. Just because like Ryan is so affable and the situation resolves itself pretty much immediately. To where, yeah, it's just kind of a forgettable episode for me. There were some laughs and there were some really good lines, just like last episode. Not quite as funny across the board, but also it's not bogged down by the weirdness of the previous one. So I would say this is just sort of like a middling Better Off Ted episode.
Yeah, I just mostly appreciate the fact that this is a real thing. At least it's not like
definitely.
The sexual harassment is a disease. It's not a real thing, but like the guy who just wants to talk to you and like gets in the way of your workflow, that's a real thing.
Yeah.
And like I think the guy who plays Ryan plays it pretty well and pretty straight. I loved when we met his wife, and it was like, oh, like Ted thinks that he can dissociate from this and not think about it, and he's ready to go down there and be assertive. And then Ryan's like wonderful, sweet wife comes in. She's like, hi, baby, did you talk to Ted about the growth on your foot? And like they both genuinely, sincerely believe that like Ted is the nicest guy at the office to Ryan, and nobody else respects him like he does.
Yeah. And that's a pretty standard. I mean, I think what is partially forgettable about this one is it's such a standard sitcom beat of like, the one person who is nice to you but is a little annoying, you're too mean to them, and then you feel really bad. I feel like many sitcoms have that episode.
Mm-hmm.
But they have it because it works. That moment where his wife shows up and Ted is like, oh no. It's funny. And you feel for Ted in that situation, because I think all of us at some point have maybe been a little too callous to someone or had that happen to us. Like you're saying, it's a real thing, and so it's relatable, but it also is not like distinctly Better Off Teddy either.
That's a better name for the show.
Better
Also,
Off Teddy.
I know you have to have conflict to make the show happen, but would a like standard adult like Ted really struggle to just tell somebody like, "Hey, I'm not like blowing you off. I just have to be somewhere. Can we please pick this up another time?" Like he just doesn't even have the confidence to say that, I guess.
Right. It's kind of funny at the beginning of the episode when Phil says, "Oh, you're avoiding a situation that makes you uncomfortable too. This is the first time I've thought that we're from the same species." Because Ted is so naturally charismatic that you think he'd be able to say like, "Hey, I gotta get to this meeting, but I'll catch you later," or something like that. But I think it's also, it reminded me of like the moment where Ryan says, "Oh, my mom is back in the hospital," and Ted turns around. Reminded me of that episode of Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends where the tall
Amazing poll, by the way.
friend, thank you. What's the tall friend's name? The red like
Wilt.
basketball guy? Wilt. Oh my god, like Wilt Chamberlain.
Exactly.
Wow, I never knew that when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Where Wilt, they go to the mall and Wilt like holds the door open for
Oh
everybody.
my god!
And gets stuck there. You remember that one?
Yes, and he can't leave because he keeps being sorry. And,
yeah, this feels like that, where Ted, you'd think, could just sort of say like, "Gotta go," but he has this complex where he's like, people have to think of me as the nice guy, and I have to sit through this whole conversation, and I can't be callous about it, but that also makes me incredibly bitter and mean. So that felt believable to me, even though you could also make the argument that like Ted could just say, "We have to go to this meeting and we're late for it. Sorry, dude."
Wow, that was the 4th episode of Foster's. They like got good at that show immediately.
That show was good.
So
good. That show was good.
So good. Good movie ending it too, where it's like we learn about Wilt's owner.
Ooh, I don't know if I've seen that.
We'll look into it after this,
we'll chat it. We'll do the whole show.
We'll probably. Whoa.
How long is that show? No, how long is it?
I don't know, Magellan.
Just look it up. I'll vamp. Foster's Home for Imaginary Chats is a good name. It's a good title for a season.
It's 82 episodes, my friend.
Oh no. Sorry, Fosters. Sorry, bud.
I just feel like we're gonna relate. We're gonna relate to Frankie more than ever as like a sad millennial who isn't making.
Yeah, definitely. I think Frankie was my most relatable character when I was a kid.
Yeah, she's very good.
Supremely relatable.
Just tired, overworked.
Yes.
Sick of everyone's shit. No one listens. No, I
who's
thought
who's the other millennial icon that we talked about recently? I can't remember.
Pinky from Pinky and the Brain.
Yeah, that's right.
It really says a lot about who we are.
All millennials are either a Pinky or a Frankie, and many of us are both, I would say.
Often, yes.
Yeah. Anyway.
The other plot line, because the Ryan stuff. Well, okay, so the Ryan stuff briefly. He leaves because Ted was too mean to him, which I don't actually think he was that mean, but he feels bad and he feels hurt and betrayed. Yeah. I get that. Ted visits him at his house where he's like burping, and it sounded like the burp was dubbed in, by the way, when he walks by, and the guy's like, that was definitely dubbed in.
Probably, yeah.
And he's trying to live his unemployed life. I guess I don't think he like quit his job. I imagine he just like took some time off. I tried squaring this in my head because I'm like, he left for a day and then came back. Like, that's not how jobs work.
Yeah, they made it sound like he quit his job, but maybe it was sort of like he stormed out and he could come the next day and say like, "Hey,
sorry,
can we forget that I did that." I think that's kind of the space that he's
Imagine being able to leave your job for a day because you're not in the mood, and then come back the next day and you haven't been fired.
Well, I mean, he would get in trouble for it, but also I'm sure if Ted is like pulling some strings or vouching for him, then maybe he'll be okay.
Is this anything, Magellan? Dr. Vouchy?
Dr. Vouchy. I don't know. You're gonna have to stew on that one, I think.
Okay, I'll leave it in overnight in the fridge.
I don't think there will ever be a better piece of Dr. Fauci content than when that guy from Pentatonix did the Hamilton parody.
No!
Dr. Fauci.
My health points go down every time I think about that stupid video. I need those health points for the upcoming wars. Linda has a beautiful moment at the beginning where it seems like she's actually good at small talk. She's like, Ted, you just need to be good at small talk. This is how you get rid of people. And Mr. Krebs walks by and he's like, hey, Linda. And she's like, how's the wife? How's the family? All like, how's that thing that you were telling me about? I aspire to be this good at small talk. I've like completely atrophied that skill in this year, but I think this part's like legitimately good. And then it turns out that Krebs is like, I wish she would stop asking me about my damn wife.
Yeah. This is like 100% of feels like a Friends plot line, like that Phoebe would have or something, or Rachel or somebody like that.
She's like, I'm good at small talk.
Yeah, and like, this person loves me. And then that person is like, actually, I hate you. Right down to the very last part of it that was my second biggest laugh. I don't remember. Where Linda and Krebs are yelling at each other back and forth and insulting each other. And then Krebs goes, are you as turned on as I am right now?
She's like, no, like that. That I loved that because it felt like it's framed exactly like in a rom-com how that would work, where they're like getting close to each other and yelling back and forth, and then they kiss. And he's like, did you feel that? Like I felt that. And she's like, ew, no, what? You're old and weird. Go away.
Yeah, it's a pretty funny moment.
And I just thought that stuff was pretty good. Like again, Linda not thinking she's good at talking to people, but not actually is quite entertaining.
Yeah, it's a good because I think we haven't really seen. We've sort of been told like Linda has this great family background, and she sort of takes pride in being like, I'm so normal and I can get along with people really well. And I don't think we've seen that really skewered, and to see it skewered here was satisfying because again, it's as opposed to Linda being, the girl in the plot or whatever, it feels like a plot that's like about her and about something that we already know about her. Even if it's kind of rote in the sitcom landscape, it's about Linda in a real way that builds on something we already know.
Indeed. I also want to talk about Phil and Lem and their meeting with Veronica. They go there and it's just the three of them. It's a cute little meeting. They treat it like it's a horror movie scene where they're like, oh, we're going inside. And she's like, lock the door behind you. Lock the gates, if you will. And they're talking about that they want to set up a new PA system because the PA that's currently in place is really bad and has led to a lot of false alarms, like missing a gas leak. And tragically, they missed, wasn't it like, I can't remember what food-based holiday it was.
Fajitas in the cafeteria or something like that.
Fajitas, yes. And they're like, oh, it's, they basically say like we weren't sure which ones were like deadly or not, so we just evacuate whenever the PA goes off. So they're like, we missed fajita day, and that's so sad to all the hardworking lunch ladies in the lunchroom. What kind of workplace has a freaking PA system?
Yeah, that I guess if you're like in that big of a building. But then wouldn't they just email out memos or something like that?
Right? Sometimes I think that Veridian Dynamics' like office setup is supposed to be the 1950s.
It feels a little dated, yeah.
You know what I mean?
It also, I was wondering why the executives wanted like the ability to constantly say things to the employees,
It doesn't seem like a useful thing to do.
Yeah, because Veronica's directive is like, we want every executive to be able to wirelessly access the PA at any time, which sounds awful to me.
As a worker, and if I were to have to use that, it would suck.
Yeah.
Like, they can just turn their volume up at any time and then be like, hey, guys.
And they could also always, like, they could leave it on by accident and stuff. It just
They do in this episode.
Yeah.
But it doesn't seem like a very modern technology. Briefly, though, when they're in the meeting and they're like afraid of Veronica, Lem and Phil do hold hands, which, I mean, what am I to say here? What's a gal to say in a scene like this, folks? Tell me. chatspot@gmail.com. What do we think about this?
The Phil Lem ship is definitely not dead. Definitely.
It's alive and well.
Alive and well, yeah.
But then we have that we're bouncing back and forth. We actually do in the middle of the episode get a Veridian Dynamics ad. This time the theme is friendship, and the end tag is friendship. It's the same as stealing, because they're saying that you don't want to let friends get in the way of you doing work, like Ted and Ryan.
Yeah.
I didn't think about it until JKK brought it up last week. Sorry, that's Justin for the casual listener out there. Justin, our guest last week, mentioned that sometimes the Veridian Dynamics ads, even though we like them in spirit, are like not that clever.
Yeah.
But I think this episode we kind of benefited from it because it's so light. Otherwise, it's just a simple A and B. That it was good to have like the little break.
Yeah, this one felt like it needed it to have a little more oomph. I think the last one could have benefited from it too. I think I'm still going to beat that drum of if you're doing a more satirical one, the commercial can be a really helpful, I don't know what the word is, like a cipher. Is that the thing that helps you break a code? A cipher?
Yeah.
It can be a helpful cipher to the satire that you're doing. But this one, I thought it was nice too.
Exactly. And then basically, I like this too. Phil and Lem realizing that their dynamic is all about like talking back and forth, kind of like they're doing a comedy routine. So Veronica's like, well, no, next time when you guys come talk to me, instead of like doing this awkward bouncing back and forth, only one of you gets to talk. And so she has Lem talk in another meeting. And then Phil, I really cracked up at this when he's trying to like do hand signs to communicate to Lem, like, or like to emphasize what Lem is saying. And then later they really take that joke home, and Lem is trying to explain something about the PA system, and he's like, whenever he stumbles, Phil explains it to him in like mumbles based on the number of syllables in the mumble. Lem knows what he's trying to get at, or he whistles it. He whistles them.
Yeah,
that was fantastic. I like to think that Magellan and I could reach that level of synchronicity someday. Next word we're going to say, folks, is going to be the exact same word. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Brain.
Jordans.
Exactly. Specifically, I have parentheses.
Yeah.
All right, one more round. 3, 2, 1. Kevin.
Mountain top.
This is perfect. We're so good at this. And then Lem carries Phil outside of that meeting. They're just so cute. This is just you want to watch Lem and Phil be cute in front of Veronica? That's what you get. I love this.
Yeah, both of these episodes were like, let's just have a random plot where Lem and Phil get to do their thing. That sounds good, right? And we're like, yeah, it does sound good. I am enjoying it currently.
I would like to subscribe to this newsletter.
Yeah.
But they set up the microphone so that it's wireless, and then Phil has to attach it to Veronica's neck. Another crack up scene where he's like so nervous to be touching her neck. I thought the joke was he was gonna like put it on her breast, but the show is too classy to treat Veronica like that sometimes.
Yeah, I also thought they were gonna do something where Phil is like attracted to her, because we've had that before, but here he's just scared of her, which is fine. It works.
He just feels like he's gonna die around her. Yeah. And then she goes, I'd like to unhinge my jaw and swallow you like a mouse. It comes out of nowhere. It's so startling.
Yeah. That feels like Phil would like that. I bet.
I think so. I think he'd be fine with that. That's what his wife does every night anyways. That's
why
he's trying to get her to eat slower.
Or was that a Vor thing before people knew what Vor was?
My darling, Vor has always been around.
But
the dawn of
nowadays, if you said that line on TV, you for sure would make a Vor joke, right? Don't people know what it is by this point?
I don't know what the origin of Vor is.
I just think in 2010, maybe people didn't know yet.
Oh, God. I just looked up Vor on Wikipedia, and the thumbnail image is so rough.
Is it from, like, Greek times or something?
No, Vorophilia. It's like a manga or something, or manga-style art of a lady with her mouth open and eating a bunch of ladies. Anyways, Vor is a thing. People can inform us more about if they want. But anyways, he fixes the microphone, and then the volume goes up, and she yells at him, and she's like, I'm bleeding, get out. And then everyone runs out. And she has this is where we're basically just like getting to the ending that they wanted to write, which is everyone leaves, and except for Ted, because he was busy dealing with Ryan at Ryan's house. He comes back, and she's like, oh, say it was we'll tell them, if they ask, we'll tell them it was a weekend, which I loved. That joke took a second to land with me. And then she's just like sitting in the office tenderly hanging out with her bare feet on the table. Love this. And she's playing with the with the PA system, just like saying funny things like she's a radio announcer or a camp counselor or something like that. And then, this is where she says, I got to see Phil run. He's like an ostrich in a lab coat trying to catch a bus.
Mm-hmm.
She says it's lonely knowing what's best. And here we go, folks. Ted and Veronica hang out in her office and they sing together into the PA system. They sing I've Got You, Babe by Sonny Bono and Cher.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. This is so cute. I love this. Magellan said this sucks. Fight me.
I mean, I don't know. I'll go first because I think my problems with this are things that at this point are just my own hangups with the show that I have to get over because it's like not what the show is anymore. But like, is Veronica soulless or is she cute? You know, can we make a decision? Because they work against each other, in my opinion.
Porque they work against each other.
And so, like, I don't know. It's just the characterization of Veronica, I think, is just all over the map because some episodes we've talked about this. I don't want to reiterate myself too many times, but I think this is just another example of that problem that we've expressed before. And then also, like, I don't know. I mean, it is cute. Undeniably, it is an endearing scene.
Text on the screen, it's cute.
Yeah. Seeing these two, nice looking people sing a little song, and you pan over the wreckage of this abandoned office. It has a sweetness to it that cannot be denied.
Uh-huh.
But I just don't know if it makes sense for the way that I think Veronica's character is supposed to work, but maybe that conception that I have is wrong, or the show's just not doing that anymore. And also, like, it kind of feels more like something Linda would do than something Veronica would do. Maybe.
But isn't that somewhat the appeal of it? That it's Veronica and it's like, oh, this is so out of character for you, but I'm going to lean into this as Ted and like try to participate because I'm not used to this happening.
Yeah, I guess that's fair.
But I definitely agree with you that it sometimes feels like we've just taken all of the Linda development and placed it onto Veronica. Like, Veronica's doing things that Linda would have done in season 1 repeatedly. Like, the way she talks about Ted, the way that she's, like, falling back in love with him. It's like, why do we decide to make this another woman instead of just keep consistency here?
Yeah, it seems like they're almost bored with Linda or something. I don't know exactly what's going on there, but I don't know. I just, I thought it was cute, but also it's sort of like, why is this here,
I want a compilation of every time we've gone and we've said, but why? I think there's just something inherently charming about seeing like Portia de Rossi, who's usually in every role I've seen her in, very absurd and very mean and callous, and like that is the joke and like doing jokes.
Yeah.
And watching that veneer fall away and letting her be sincere for a minute. You
know what my issue with it is it feels random. I think that's more what my problem is. Like, there's no setup of knowing what Veronica's feeling over the course of the episode. So it's not like this is an emotional payoff to something where Veronica was in like a bad mood or she was upset about fucking Mordor. I don't know, something. But we get no interiority of hers whatsoever. And then we suddenly get her being like really endearing after spending an episode being kind of mean to Lem and Phil.
Right.
In a way where it's like, what is this in service of? It doesn't really feel earned. If we had sort of seeded that she really likes this song or that something sad happened to her, I don't know, then I would have liked it more, but it just kind of felt like, wouldn't it be cute if this happened next? And then it does.
I think the disagreement we have here is core to a lot of like TV criticism is like, can you appreciate the scene on the screen just for what it is, or does it have to make sense in the context of the episode or the series or the themes?
Mm-hmm.
It's just these are different sort of philosophies when doing writing for television specifically, which is a very serial medium. Is you're like, well, this scene comes after the other ones for a reason. This is a conclusion. Why doesn't this follow what I saw before?
Yeah.
And it's a bit more interpretive, and just to me, it's just like, oh, sometimes these two can get along, and in a romantic and friendly way, and that's the short and long of it. But it is weird. I definitely agree there.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I mean, I think it also has some thematic meaning in that this episode is about friendship, and we see a moment of friendship at the end. But again, like, it's the first and last time that idea of Veronica and Ted's friendship is explored in the episode. So,
Miguel, would you say that the change from Linda to Veronica is a change that you can't believe in?
Yes, you got it. That's the title. That's what the title means.
We found it, everybody.
Yeah,
that's all I got. I want to drop the microphone.
That's the change I can't believe in. That's correct. Yeah.
That's my, like, if I wrote a review for this and I was like, editor, please keep this line in. I really nailed this part. Do you have any other stray notes?
I had a few lines that got big laughs out of me. I said one of them already, which is the Mr. Krebs thing, where he's like, are you turned on or whatever? I really liked when Ryan, one of the topics of conversation is, first he says, hey, want to see a penis? And he's talking about his son's ultrasound. And then he says, hey, well, I've got you here. How are we ever going to solve this Middle East thing? Which is good and very 2010.
Yeah.
My third biggest laugh was towards the end when Phil calls Veronica critical. And then he's like, I'm so worried I'm going to say something wrong. Like, you're critical and I'm scared of you. Oh,
he like repeats the whole line again.
Yeah.
Am I dreaming?
And then he runs away. But my biggest laugh... two other lines. Mr. Krebs, when he says that Linda's obsessed with my wife, my car and my wife. Who cares? They're both small, boring, and Japanese is funny.
Wow, yeah.
And then the whole thing where the initial device that Lem and Phil make are two knobs that get put on the nipples. And then when Phil gives her the new thing, he's like, we've put it all into this convenient, easy to transport nipple. I'm sorry, nipple. I'm sorry, nipple. I'm sorry.
It goes just long enough that it's funny, yes.
But my biggest laugh of the episode is when Lem is saying something about cowboys. And then he's like, I don't know any more cowboy things. Wait.
Oh, yeah.
Beans.
And then later he says, like, howdy, and he's like, ooh, another one. I guess I do know more than I thought.
Which to me I didn't like as much, but something about
beans.
The inherent randomness of him saying, wait, beans.
Yeah.
Was real. It really hit me. It was really good.
You can't say that Better Off Chatz doesn't have good, like, joke writers.
It's a very funny show.
Yes.
I think that's its strength, is that it is a very funny show. I think it misses the mark in it being about something a lot of the time, but it is a really funny, enjoyable show.
Sometimes it feels like a show that doesn't want me to overthink it, and that makes it hard sometimes as a critic as also.
Definitely.
Because the sexual harassment episode is like, there is something funny, and like, if I was a more outwardly sexual person, then seeing everybody like hooking up in the office, I'd be like, wow, that's awesome. I love this. I love that everyone's just like hooking up. But not thinking about why that's happening or who it's happening to, you just like disregard that. And then with this one, it's like, oh, I remember when I watched Better Off Ted, I love that scene where him and Veronica like sing a song together. But it doesn't make any sense. It's just nice because it's nice. Like, you don't think about it.
Right.
So I think that's what it comes down to a lot of times is like, if I watched this show when it was airing when I was like 16 years old or something, I would be like, okay.
Yeah, and we're watching it off of a recommendation from me from when I like binged it in college over the course of a couple days. And I think it had an impression upon me then because I didn't think about it too deeply. I just watched it quickly and laughed. And, it's luckily there are other shows I've done that with, like Undeclared, for example. The like one season Jay Baruchel vehicle by I think Judd Apatow was involved.
We'll chat. We'll watch all of it.
No, but I tried to rewatch it over the summer this year, and it's not good. It really does not hold up. But Better Off Ted holds up. I think it's just also not really. It's not really about much once you kind of scratch underneath the surface.
Right. And that can be that somewhat can be disappointing.
Well, especially because it's a show that almost calls attention to itself as if it's saying, like, look, this is about something, you know?
Yeah.
I think that's why our criticisms are fair, is because a show like, I don't know, like Parks and Rec, I always talk about, but Parks and Rec never is saying, like, look, we're about something, or it rarely is. Whereas Better Off Chatz, I think, you know, set itself up at the very beginning to sort of be about more than it actually is.
Whereas you parallel that with a show that I also reference too much, like Scrubs, that doesn't claim to be about anything, but then becomes about something in the micro.
Well, it's about something emotional too,
yes,
as opposed to something
not something about like a
satirical.
critique. Exactly. Yeah. John, are you a hammer? Because you did nail it.
Boom, baby.
Can you tell me what we're watching next time on Better Off Chatz?
I would love to do that. First, we were watching season 2, episode 7, Beating a Dead Workforce. When an employee drops dead at work, Veronica tries to turn the incident into an inspiration.
Oh no!
Yeah.
See, that's the kind of season 2 episode I want.
Yeah. Whoa, that sounds like a good episode. I'll do the drop in there, folks. I hope you like that.
Yeah. And then episode 8, Impertinence of Communicationizing. A typo in a memo about inappropriate language at Veridian Dynamics wreaks havoc.
Are we going to get like an episode about the R slur?
Oh no. I hope it's more about like fuck than it is about slurs.
Yeah. I think
I think it's going to be about cursing.
Yeah. Me too.
Well, those sound fine. We'll see. Show's getting long in the tooth a little bit. I mean, it's Better Off Chatz is weird because it was definitely canceled before it became its best, but also it never did quite become its best.
Mm-hmm. Or maybe it was its best in episode 1 and it just never kept up with that.
I think that might be true. I mean, I love the show. I still really like it, but
yeah.
I think it most clearly was what it was in episode 1.
You're the most clearly what you are in episode 1.
Oh, I hope not. I did not put a good foot forward in episode 1 of Chatz.
But John, we watched Farscape. What did you think? I don't know. It's fine. I love the beginning of Chatz.
Yeah, go listen to the first 10 seconds of Escape Chatz 1.
It's so good. We were babies. We were literally children.
Boy. Well, anyway, that does it for this episode of Better Off Chatz. We hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for listening, everybody. Mm-hmm. I would like to tell the folks about how they can find, contact, and support the show, if that's okay.
That's super okay. I'd love it if you did that.
So if you'd like to get in touch with us with questions, comments, suggestions, feedback, really anything that you want to say, you can do that in a couple ways. You can email us, chatspod@gmail.com. You can follow us and DM us on Twitter, twitter.com/chatspod. You can also join the conversation. Have your voice heard over on the subreddit, reddit.com/r/chatspod. They are almost complete with a Throw Chats Thursday listen back to the first season of Escape Chatz. They're almost done. A couple episodes away from the end, right? Or we're about to wrap up this week.
They did the season 4. They just did the season 4 recap last week. So
okay, so they're like 3 episodes away from the end. Gonna finish before the year is out. So that's that stuff. If you'd like to support the show financially, you can do so over on Patreon, patreon.com/chatspod, and back the show at a couple different tiers. $1 really is just because you like us, and sometimes there's random bonus stuff that we'll release at $1. And also, when I'm able to do my Chats Files, X-Files episodes, they're available at $1. $3 gets you access consistently to our 3 times and sometimes 4 times a month bonus content. Which could be Chats Nights, that's us kind of hanging out, talking about whatever we want. Pilot Chats, which is us piloting potential new shows. And Commentary Chats, which is us doing movie commentaries about movies. Wow. Yeah, and then $5 a month is, it's because you love us and you want to throw a couple extra bucks our way, and we really appreciate that. If you want to know what's coming up on the Patreon in the month of December, which is the month in which you're hearing this, next week we are doing a tier list ranking of all the albums of Alan's favorite band, Metric. Because we did my favorite band back in the summer, back in June. I don't remember when that was, but we did it this summer. Then, the week after that, we are going to be looking at our Spotify Wrapped. and seeing what music we listened to in 2020, breaking that down. And then the final Saturday of the month of December, just after Christmas, we are going to be doing our classic now. This is going to be the second year in a row Christmas tradition of piloting a Star Trek show.
Yes.
And we're going to definitely be watching Star Trek The Next Generation. We might also be watching Star Trek The Animated Series. We'll see what folks say over on the Patreon. But that is coming your way in the month of December. And that's it for plugs and stuff. Alan.
Yes.
We also like to tell folks what they can enjoy between this week and next week if we have a little recommendation for them, a little something to snack on. A chatsome, you might say. Do you have a chatsome for the folks?
I do. I was gutted to learn that my chatsome this week, which is delivered to me by the gods, not by me, obviously, is a video game. Because we play a lot of games. It's quarantine. We're playing games a lot. What do you want from me?
Mine are also games again. I'm sorry, everybody.
It's okay. It's okay. I am reading a new book, but it's a Babylon 5 book, so I don't need to recommend it to anyone. But no, the game I want to talk about today is The World Ends With You.
Oh.
And more broadly, this idea of you probably have some old consoles lying around that still support games that you never played. Go back and check it out. You have these companies all want you to check out the new computer games and the new PlayStation 5 and the new Xbox, whatever you want to call it. If that's what I don't even know what it's called. Is it an Xbox or an Xbox?
Yeah, it's called an X-Cube. Did you know that the Xbox, you can emulate GameCube games on it?
No, you can't. Why'd you say that?
Not like officially, but people are figuring out how to do it.
Oh, that's pretty sick, actually.
On the new one, on the Xbox Series.
That's very cool. No, The World Ends With You would probably be tough to emulate, and it's not a GameCube game. It's a DS game. But I recommend it because they just announced the sequel. It's called like Neo: The World Ends With You or something. And I'd never played it. I always wanted to. I'm really fascinated by that era of like DS RPGs where they didn't have the hard drive space to make 100-hour like epic, but they did have a touchscreen and tried to figure out how to use it effectively. So The World Ends With You, it's like a JRPG that takes place in Tokyo, specifically in the Shibuya district, where you're a bunch of teens playing a game for survival, which is a very common trope in a lot of like anime and stuff. Is like teens that could die if they don't beat each other in a battle. But it's really fun. It uses the top and bottom screen well. I hear that the story goes really interesting places. It's a lot of people's like all-time favorite DS game and some people's favorite game. I'm like an hour or so into it. I'm really liking it already. It's kind of got me by the reins, and it's nice to just have another portable RPG to play. I haven't touched RPGs in a while because I feel like I just haven't been ready to commit. But between the announcement of the sequel and being able to find this one on eBay for dirt cheap, I was like, well, what's the harm, right? So, The World Ends With You.
Nice.
What about you, kid?
Well, I'm here again, chancing video games. I'm sorry. I
Boo.
almost watched a movie, but then I didn't watch a movie, so I can't do any movies. I almost didn't have any new chatsomes because all I've been doing all week is playing Hades and watching girlfriend reviews, so sorry about it. But
both of which have already been chatsomed.
Yes, but I decided that what my Switch library was missing was some puzzle games, and so I got on my puzzle game, and I got Picross S. There are like 5 Picross S games on the Switch, and I got Picross S, which is the first one. I've never played or done a Picross before, but from what I understand, it's sort of like in the same league as a Sudoku or a crossword or something like that, where it's like a little puzzle. And I don't know, people have probably played Picross, and I'm late to the game, but it isn't that hard, but it stretches your brain just a little bit. And then when you solve the puzzle, it reveals that you were making a little pixel art shape, and it colors it in, and you're like, oh, it was a key. Wow. Or like, oh, it was a top hat. This is great. Which is kind of a nice reward. Because when you finish a Sudoku puzzle, it's kind of like, oh, it's a bunch of numbers. Okay. But it's fun. And then the other game is from a few years ago. It's an indie puzzle game called Baba Is You.
Oh.
And Baba is you. It's kind of hard to explain, but essentially you're on a screen where there are these different elements, so that you're like a little sheep named Baba, and there's usually a flag, and maybe there's some rocks or some walls or other things. And then also spread on the sort of 2D plane are little logic statements where each chunk of it is a separate piece that you can push around and move and actually change the logic of how the different elements on the screen work. So usually there's something that will say Baba is you, and that's across 3 blocks. And then you might have to get the flag to say flag is win, and then go touch the flag. Or maybe you can't get to the flag, but you can make it say Baba is you and also make it say Baba is win, and then you win. Or, usually the wall might say wall is stop, but then if you move the stop, you can go through the walls, and, it's really, really interesting. And I'm just in the phase of the game right now where it's teaching me how the game works and hasn't really significantly tested me yet, but I can tell it's going to get super challenging and interesting. So Baba is you is my puzzle suggestion.
Yeah, it's kind of like if they figured out how to make programming into a game in a way that doesn't just feel like you're learning programming, like it more feels like logic.
Yeah.
But the if-then statements are really cool. It's a fun game to put brains into it, throw a bunch of heads at it and be like, hey, can we figure this out together? Let's work it out.
Yeah.
I'll co-sponsor that chat sim. I know I co-sponsor most of your chat sims because I play everything, but I definitely co-sponsor that chat sim. And that, dear listener, is going to do it for this episode of Better Off Chatz. Thank you, as always, to Magellan for being the rock to my hard place, and thank you for listening to Better Off Chatz. Peace.